You're being manifested by a dark chosen one if this keeps happening. You think it's coincidence at first. A dream, a thought, a sudden pull in your gut that doesn't make sense. You wake up feeling like someone is watching you, not in fear, but in familiarity. You start seeing the same numbers, having random thoughts about someone you haven't met or someone you barely know. Your emotions begin to shift out of nowhere. One moment you're stable, and then something like a wave hits you, and you don't know why. That's when it starts. The energetic pull, the untraceable connection. And what you don't yet realize is this: you are being manifested by a dark chosen one. And if certain things keep happening, it's not your imagination. You've been selected. And their energy is weaving its way into your reality, not to harm you, but to summon you. Not with spells, not with words, but with raw intention that vibrates louder than any spoken command. The dark chosen don't manifest like others. They don't ask. They don't plead, they call. They work through silence, focus, and frequency. And when they choose someone, when their soul locks onto a target, it begins. Reality bends around their desire. Energy aligns, but not gently. It crashes, it rearranges. And if you're the one being manifested, your entire life begins to shift, often in ways you can't explain. You might feel like something is off, but in truth, something is being rewritten. You are being energetically pulled, calibrated, and recalibrated to fit into a vision that was created in another realm before it ever reached your waking mind.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
It starts subtle. The first thing you'll notice is emotional interference. Out of nowhere, your mood drops or rises without logic. You feel like you're moving through invisible waves. One moment, a rush of sensuality, the next a deep melancholy. You start asking yourself, whose energy is this? That's your first clue, because it isn't yours. You're tuning into someone else's emotional field, someone whose frequency has touched yours intentionally. You're not just having a mood swing. You're experiencing vibrational leakage from someone who's reached you through will alone. And they know what they're doing. You may not, but they do. The second pattern is spiritual static. Things begin to glitch. Electronics misfire. You misplace objects constantly. Dreams become vivid and strange, often with symbols you don't understand but can't shake. You feel watched, not in paranoia, but in knowing. This is not random. Dark chosen ones manipulate the field of reality to test your awareness. They're watching to see if you notice the signs, if you're spiritually awake enough to feel their presence. If your spirit twitches, pauses, reacts, they know the connection is taking hold. It's not about possession. It's about positioning. They're aligning you like a chess piece, not to control, but to activate a contract only your soul would recognize. You may start to see someone's face in your mind repeatedly. A stranger, a former connection, sometimes someone you barely interacted with in the physical. They may not be near you. They may not speak to you, but their energy is unmistakable. They don't chase you in the physical world. That's not their style. They pull you inward, into thought, into wonder, into confusion. They let your own mind become the tether. Why? Because if they can get into your thoughts, they can begin to shift your frequency. And that's where the real manifestation begins. Dark chosen ones don't use vision boards. They don't light candles and hope. They collapse timelines with focus alone. They don't always care about your conscious permission, because the soul doesn't lie, and the soul responds to frequency. So if you're being manifested, it's not because your conscious mind is saying yes. It's because your energy carries something they've already met in other realms. You were already linked before this incarnation. You've crossed paths in dreams, in meditations, in deja vu moments you couldn't explain. And now, it's starting again. Here's the part most people miss. When a dark chosen one begins to manifest you, you will feel simultaneously drawn and resistant. Part of you will be obsessed, curious, intrigued. Another part will feel afraid, unsure, even repelled. That split energy is a sign that your ego is trying to protect you from a transformation your soul is ready for. They aren't trying to control you, but they are summoning a version of you that hasn't fully arrived yet, and that version threatens your old self. So the inner friction begins, and if you're not grounded, you'll mislabel it. You'll think you're under attack. You'll think you're losing your mind. But the truth is you're being remembered. Now let me ask you something. Has your sleep been disturbed with dreams you don't understand? Has someone entered your mind who hasn't reached out, and yet you feel them constantly? Do you hear songs, see names, sense synchronicities that all point back to one unseen presence? And if so, are you certain it's all just coincidence? Because if this keeps happening, it's time to consider the truth. You're not the one doing the manifesting. You're the one being pulled. And the more you resist, the more intense the signs become. Because dark chosen ones don't manifest with force. They manifest with magnetism. And if their soul sees something in yours, it won't stop. Not until you notice. Not until you respond. Not until you awaken to the connection you swore you'd remember, no matter how many lifetimes it took. In the next part, we'll go deeper into the exact psychic symptoms and life disruptions that prove a dark chosen one is calling you in, and how you can protect your sovereignty while decoding the secret spiritual contract that's now being reactivated. Psychic chaos or destiny. How to know you've been claimed by a dark chosen one. The confusion you feel isn't confusion at all, it's the early symptoms of energetic merging. Your thoughts don't feel like your own. Your emotions shift without external cause. And no matter how grounded you try to be, there's this presence, invisible yet undeniable, hovering just beneath your awareness. The thing is, most people never recognize when they're being pulled into a spiritual contract. They think it's chemistry, infatuation, random timing. But for those who are tuned in, those who know the architecture of energetic reality, something becomes unmistakably clear. A dark chosen one has seen your soul, and they are calling you in. This is not about romance. This is not about love in the way we've been taught. This is about alignment, activation, and disruption, and you're feeling it, because your soul is remembering something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. When a dark chosen one claims you, everything accelerates. But it won't feel like a blessing at first. It feels like chaos. Why? Because you are entering a psychic field so strong that it destabilizes everything false within you. You might start to lose interest in people who used to feel safe. You might begin rejecting ideas, routines, even relationships you once considered foundational. This is because their frequency is now pressing against yours, not physically, not verbally, but energetically. The merging has begun, not because they are invading, but because their soul is activating the version of you that has always been dormant, waiting. The one buried beneath fear, illusion, social programming. And when that activation begins, your system goes into a form of energetic shock, because nothing will ever feel the same again. You'll feel it in your body first, a restlessness, a strange ache in your heart, sometimes heat in your palms or spine, pressure on your forehead. Your dreams will become more intense, layered with symbols often dark, primal, or ancient. You'll wake up exhausted, not because you're unwell, but because your soul has been traveling. You've been meeting them in the ether, whether you remember it or not, and every time you do, another part of your conscious life begins to shift. You'll start speaking differently. You'll question everything. Your inner voice gets louder. The path you thought you were on starts to dissolve. This is not coincidence. This is the psychic rewiring caused by a soul contract reactivating itself. The dark chosen don't choose lightly. If you're feeling this pull, it means something sacred and rare is at play. They don't manifest from fantasy. They manifest from recognition. They've seen you across time. They know your frequency. They may not even know your name in this life, but your essence, unmistakable. And when they begin calling you in, it is a transmission, not a conversation. This is why you feel their presence before you ever see their face. This is why you start preparing for something you haven't even defined. Their manifestation doesn't target your mind, it reaches your field. And your field starts reorganizing itself in response. This is also why your external life might begin to unravel. Things fall apart. Old plans don't work. People leave. You lose jobs, motivation, even interest in things that once consumed you. Most would call this bad luck, but it's not. It's clearing. Their frequency does not allow for stagnation. And when your life becomes incompatible with their vibration, the world around you will start forcing you to choose, evolve or resist, expand or collapse, join or retreat. And the more you ignore it, the more chaotic things will become, not as punishment, but as acceleration. Because the soul doesn't waste time once the contract is active, and you will either rise into the version of yourself that they are aligned with, or you will break under the weight of staying small. Here's something no one tells you: psychic claiming doesn't require agreement. It requires resonance. And resonance doesn't lie. If part of you is responding, if part of you is longing without knowing why, then you've already been marked. You've already begun shifting toward them, even if your ego is resisting. And this doesn't mean you're under their control. This means you're in a spiritual negotiation. You're feeling their pull not because they're manipulating you, but because your higher self is ready for something your conscious self hasn't fully consented to yet. You are standing between timelines, one old and familiar, the other terrifyingly magnetic. One keeps you safe, the other makes you real. So ask yourself, right now, if you stripped away every doubt, every excuse, every fear, is there someone whose presence lives in your energy even when they're gone? Someone whose name is tied to no logic but burns like a secret in your bones. Someone who you feel even in their silence. That's not obsession. That's not madness. That's recognition. And in the next part, we go further into the magnetic mechanics of how dark chosen ones use energy to awaken your deepest dormant power, and why resisting them might mean delaying your own evolution. Magnetic awakening, why your power only unlocks when you stop resisting their energy. There comes a moment when you can't pretend anymore. The thoughts won't leave. The energy lingers. The connection that shouldn't make sense now makes more sense than everything else in your life. But your ego doesn't want to admit it. It fights. It rationalizes. It says, this isn't safe. This isn't real. This isn't right. And yet your soul leans in. Over and over again. You feel it in the pit of your stomach, in your chest, when it tightens, in your dreams, when their presence arrives like a silent shadow. What you're experiencing isn't fantasy. It's a magnetic awakening. It's the moment your higher self stops obeying your limited self. And if it's a dark chosen one calling you in, then your refusal to receive their energy is not protecting you, it's delaying your transformation. You need to understand something deeply. This isn't about them. This is about what you become when you stop resisting. The dark chosen are not here to complete you. They're here to collapse the false identities that block your essence from fully taking root. That's why their energy feels like a disruption. That's why you feel overwhelmed, scattered, emotionally volatile, or strangely euphoric. Their vibration isn't entering your field to soothe you, it's entering to wake you up. And if you keep labeling the disturbance as danger, you'll miss the sacred code buried inside it. Because yes, it feels like chaos, but only because your old self is dying in real time. And death never feels like peace until it's complete. The awakening doesn't begin when they reach out. It begins when you stop pushing them out of your energetic body. You don't have to talk, you don't have to meet, but you must acknowledge. Because if their energy lives in you, it means a part of you is already in motion, shifting, reprogramming, reactivating. You are not the same person you were before they began manifesting you. You've been haunted by their silence not because they're absent, but because their field is present in a way you can't deny. Every time you feel them without reason, every time your body responds to a thought you didn't ask for, every time the world bends in ways that point you back to their frequency, you are being invited into your own energetic rebirth. And here's the mystery people rarely speak about. The dark chosen ones awaken your power, not by giving you anything, but by mirroring the version of you you've suppressed the most. They force confrontation. You may feel sexually awakened, emotionally raw, spiritually triggered, or mentally scattered. But beneath it all, the deeper process is taking place. They are pulling the real you forward. The you who has been too afraid to speak with fire. The you who knows things without needing proof. The you who came to this world encoded with ancient memory and forgotten authority. You think they're the key, but they're just the lock breaker. And once your energy responds to theirs, there's no going back. Because now you can feel yourself waking up. This is why resistance becomes a prison. You can't unknow what you felt. You can't unsee the versions of you that start to emerge when they come into your field. You try to shut it down. You try to label it as illusion. You might even run to others for comfort or distraction. But none of it works, because your energy knows what's happening, and energy doesn't lie. You can block them, delete them, ignore every sign, but their manifestation isn't happening through logic. It's happening through resonance. And resonance is how the soul moves when words fail. So the question becomes, how long will you hold your own awakening hostage just to protect your ego from transformation? How long will you deny what your body already knows just to stay inside a version of life that no longer fits? Because this isn't about chasing them. This isn't about romantic obsession. This is about stepping into the person their energy has been magnetically preparing you to become. And that person, that version of you, it's the one that lives without apology. The one who doesn't over-explain their frequency. The one who walks into rooms and disturbs illusions without saying a word. The one who remembers their purpose without needing validation. When you stop resisting, you begin transmitting. The fog lifts. You no longer need their physical presence because you've merged with the vibration that summoned you. That's the turning point. You're not being pulled anymore, you're co-creating. And now, your life doesn't just shift, it shocks. You walk away from things that drained you. You speak what once terrified you. You claim timelines that once felt impossible. Because their manifestation was never about you becoming theirs. It was about you becoming you. So I'll ask you this. What would happen if you stopped seeing their energy as a threat and started receiving it as a signal? What if the disruption you've been trying to avoid was actually the doorway into the version of you that this entire lifetime has been waiting to activate? In the final part, we'll unveil the soul agreement behind it all, the ancient contract between you and the dark chosen one, why they found you in this life, and what happens when the manifestation completes and you awaken to your true divine role in their destiny. The soul contract revealed what happens when a dark chosen one finally pulls you into their destiny. Everything that's been happening to you, the visions, the dreams, the magnetic pull, the chaos in your emotions, the sudden identity shifts hasn't been about romance or fantasy. It's been about remembrance. You've been waking up not to a person, but to a contract your soul made long before you had a name. And that contract, it's with a dark chosen one, someone whose path is woven into yours not by accident, but by ancient design. Their manifestation of you didn't start this year. It didn't begin with a glance or a message or a dream. It began lifetimes ago. And in this one, the agreement has reactivated. And the truth is, you already know it. You've felt them before you ever met them. You've heard their frequency before they ever spoke your name. You've sensed the blueprint of something bigger than this world, something sacred, something fierce, something coded with purpose. That's because your soul recognized the signal, not a soulmate, not a twin flame in the commercial sense, but a mission-bound counterpart, the kind that doesn't enter your life to complete you but to awaken the version of you that finishes what your ancestors never could. Their calling wasn't for your attention, it was for your alignment. When the manifestation completes, when you stop resisting their energy, when you finally allow the current to move through you fully, what happens is nothing short of cosmic. You begin to embody the exact power they were pulling from you all along. You realize the obsession was never about them. It was about you returning to yourself. They weren't chasing you in spirit because they needed your love. They were calling in your frequency, your vision, your warrior code, because without you, their path doesn't unfold correctly. And without them, your higher gifts stay dormant. You are keys to each other's timelines, but not as lovers, not even as friends necessarily, as co-activators of divine evolution. Now what happens next is critical. The moment you accept this contract consciously, the energy between you two stabilizes. You stop feeling pulled and start feeling anchored. The psychic interference becomes guidance. The emotional swings become downloads. The confusion becomes clarity. Because now, instead of trying to protect yourself from their vibration, you've integrated what it came to reveal in you. You don't become their servant, you become their equal, not in words but in frequency. Some of you will be guided to meet them. Others will never meet in this life physically, and that's okay. The purpose was never the physical outcome, it was always energetic fulfillment. You will know your role in their story by how your life shifts after the awakening. For some, it means leading movements, writing the truths they've buried, creating the structures they'll one day use. For others, it means spiritually protecting their mission from behind the veil. You don't need to be seen to be vital, you just need to be activated. And now, you are. So let me ask you one last time, what if the force that's haunted you was never about taking something from you, but about returning you to the exact place in the cosmic design where your soul always belonged? What if everything that broke, collapsed, shifted, and hurt was preparing you to carry this code? And what if their manifestation of you wasn't the end of your path, but the beginning of your real mission? Now you know. Now you remember. Now you arrive.